The August scythe of the central bank struck for the final time this week, leaving in its wake the revocation of licenses of some 23 savings and loans as well as other non-banking financial institutions. That has been probably the biggest story this week, and that's up for review right here on Press Conference, where we review the major issues that have come up by way of press conferences and press engagements in the course of the week under review. My name is Duke Mensah Opoku. In this edition, we look at the financial sector cleanup and the issues arising out of that. We'll review how far it has gone over the past 2 years since it started from the universal banks to the microfinance companies and then to the final leg, which has been the savings and loans bit of it. We'll also look at the churning out of official figures by the Employment Ministry. In the course of the week under review, the Employment Minister put out figures which he claims are the official figures in terms of employment that has been created by the government since it took office close to 3 years now. There's been a response also from the minority. We'll look at that. And finally, the Union of Journalists, that's the Ghana Journalists Association, marked its 70th anniversary in the course of this week under review. We'll also be looking at that right here on Press Conference. My name is Duke Mensah Opoku. The show is live and interactive via the WhatsApp line 055-058-5832, 055-058-5832. You can join us via the Facebook stream. Drop your comments and we'll read them for you. You can also join us via Twitter. The hashtag is Press Conference. We'll be back after this break. I'll introduce my guest and we'll delve into the issues. You're welcome back to Press Conference right here on Citi TV. I'll introduce my guest and we'll delve into the issues. To my immediate left is Kofi Yeboah. He's General Secretary of the Ghana Journalists Association. Welcome.
Look, thank you for having me.
Next to him is Etornam. He's a business journalist with Media General. That's TV3 and 3FM. And to my far left is Richard Ni Annerquaye Abbey, editor of citybusinessnews.com. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Duke.
So to put the issues in perspective, first of all, these are the banks, not the banks, savings and loans companies that have actually gone down under in terms of the revocation of their licenses. And we would very soon be showing you in your short the list of banks, savings and loans companies actually, about 23 of them that have actually gone down under and which we would actually be looking at. So it includes Ascent Financial Services Limited, Adom Savings and Loans Limited, All Time Finance, Alpha Capital Savings and Loans Limited, ASN Financial Services, CDH Savings and Loans, Commerce Savings and Loans, Crest Finance House Limited, Dream Finance Company, Express Savings and Loans Company, First African Savings and Loans Company Limited, First Allied, First Ghana, First Trust, Global Access, GN Savings and Loans, Ideal Finance, IFS, Legacy Capital, Midland, Sterling, Unicredit, and Women's World Bank Savings and Loans Company Limited. So in your short there we have the list of banks, the list of savings and loans and other non-banking financial institutions that have actually gone down under and the licenses have been revoked. The Information Minister earlier today explained the rationale behind this. So we'll take you to a steps of that press briefing which occurred earlier today at the Information Ministry.
This is an administration that is promising jobs, growth, jobs, incomes for people. Why would such an administration be interested in deliberately closing down people's businesses when it knows that in the end it will have to answer for how many jobs have been created or the addition or the net addition of jobs? It's not a coherent argument. The Bank of Ghana makes us understand that these organizations are insolvent and it is important to take action in that space. You cannot say that because you want to create jobs, you are going to let them continue to operate as they are operating when they are insolvent. And that's why the government will provide funding to the Bank of Ghana to take action in that space. In places where they can do purchase and assumption transactions so that the organizations literally keep running, they are doing so. In places where they can't, they are not able to continue. In places where other organizations have taken over these organizations and have come to the view that some of the numbers they can't contain, they may have to, because sometimes it may not make economic sense to have 3 branches within 200 meters of each other of the same organization. They have had to rationalize some of those numbers. So it's a balancing act that the Bank of Ghana has been working, and for the administration, our interest has been to provide the resources that they need to go about their work in that space. Persons who are found culpable of having deliberately indulged in acts that brought these banks down, because not all of these institutions necessarily came down because of deliberate acts, but persons who are found culpable of deliberate acts that brought some of these institutions down would have to answer. And I think already some of the receivers are in court. You're familiar with that. Already some of the receivers are in court trying to retrieve assets from various persons. And those who are being investigated, it's my understanding, are also being investigated. And if any persons are found culpable of deliberate acts that have brought institutions to this point, action will be taken against those persons as well.
So that's the explanation from the Information Minister as to how this is not supposed to have been motivated by political intentions in that regard. But GN Bank, GN Savings and Loans, one of the companies whose licenses have been revoked, have actually served notice, and they issued a statement hours after the Bank of Ghana announced. So we'll take a steps of the press statement, which would be on your screen in a minute. But the most important part would be section 1.3, which says that our position is that GN Savings is not only solvent, but would be highly illiquid if the Ministry of Finance simply ordered itself and other government agencies to quickly pay the amounts owed to GN Savings and other related entities. We expect this matter to be resolved in due course. And since then, they have made their intentions very clear that they will be heading to the courts for a resolution of that matter. So far, they are the only ones that we've heard from regarding a challenging of what the Bank of Ghana has done in terms of revocation of their savings and loan licenses. Let me come to my guests now. Begin with you, Etornam. You have followed this issue right from the start, from the Capital UT days. This is the final leg which the Bank of Ghana actually put out there on Friday. Let's look at the journey and the implications of this financial sector cleanup.
So let's take it step by step. So it's been 2 years of rigorous shake-up of the financial sector. You remember on the 14th of August in 2017, the Bank of Ghana announced the collapse of UT and Capital banks, and that was how it started the cleanup. And so 2 years down the line, you've seen a drastic reduction in the number of commercial banks from 36 to 23. Now, that's huge. It's never happened before in the history of Ghana. And if you look at the journey, after that, it revoked the licenses of 347 microfinance institutions. After that, the Bank of Ghana revoked the licenses of 70 money lending companies. After that, it introduced the corporate governance structure to look at the tenure of people who will be on boards and all that. And then we had the recent one on Friday, revoking the licenses of 23 savings and loans. So it's been quite a journey for the Bank of Ghana. Now, and the banking public, I must add. So 2 years, all these happened in 2 years. The journey, if you ask me, has been that of mixed with shock, you know, for especially employees and shareholders of these finance houses and commercial banks. Now, many have applauded the Bank of Ghana for, you know, looking at the depositor and trying to save the interest of the depositor. But the reaction is that 2 years, and you've seen this reduction from 36 to 23 commercial banks, revoking the license of 347, is too much within 2 years. So they said, okay, Bank of Ghana, you've done well, but we could have taken it a step at a time. A step at a time.
But if you look at that, it would look as if this has been done in segments. If you look at the segmentation of the financial sector, it started from the top and has trickled down. If you look at it from that way, what could be wrong with that approach?
I agree with you, but reducing the number of commercial banks from 36 to 23, that's huge. Now you crushed 5 banks into the Consolidated Bank Ghana, CBG. Now, when you crush these banks, somewhere, a bank like Unibank, people had visas, you know, people had their private, you know, agreements with these individual banks before you crash them. Someone would have thought that a central bank who is taking on such a huge tax would have done a few underground, you know, works. For instance, if I have a visa with Unibank, for instance, and you have taken it on, you should have made provisions, because within 3-4 months when this was ongoing, people who had visas with Unibank could not access it online because they said that the bank had been blacklisted and their licenses were revoked. So those were a few of the issues that the Bank of Ghana could have, resolved before even
and in
announcing
your view, they didn't handle it well.
It wasn't done. It wasn't done. And that brought a lot of discomfort for depositors who had to move away to banks they think are safe haven. So I think these were a few of the knots the Bank of Ghana would have tied before actually announcing the collapse of these banks. Savings and loans, there have been issues about governance. If you look at, before I come to savings and loans, if you look at the reasons the Bank of Ghana gave for banks who couldn't meet the minimum capital requirements, those who were crushed, they said, one, they couldn't meet the amounts, and there was an issue with governance structure for these banks. Now, it's almost a year down the line since the Ghana Amalgamated Trust said it was going to raise the 2 billion for these 5 banks that were built out. We still haven't received that amount. So one would say that the banks that were collapsed,
even though the money has been approved, the sovereign guarantee for GAT was approved in the last session, in the last parliamentary meeting, the second meeting.
Well, my interaction with the Bank of Ghana, the governor actually said that the money had been released, but we checked with GATS and it's not the case.
I see.
So then someone would say that we were unfair to banks that couldn't meet it and we had to revoke them. One of them, Heritage Bank, and a few others. So that issue must also be addressed. And about him saying that we are done with the cleanup exercise, I am not sure about the fact that we are done. Okay,
they are the ones looking at the issues and they have the rationale for doing this, and they are saying they are done. What would be the basis for you to doubt that they have finished with the cleanup?
We cannot be done if we haven't retrieved, depositors' funds.
Okay.
Now, on Friday, the Bank of Ghana announced that we have the funds to take care of people whose monies are locked up with these savings and loans companies. We have the funds. You and I are going to pay for that. It's the taxpayer who's going to pay for that, because these banks were actually closed, or these savings and loans companies and finance houses were closed down because they have liquidity issues. Their shareholders couldn't guarantee them, their minimum capital. They closed down these banks or these savings and loans because they have governance issues, and so they don't have the money to pay depositors, and that's a fact. So you and I are going to pay for that. And don't forget that we spent as much as 12 billion cedis cleaning the banking sector alone. So that should tell you that we are going to be paying along, but that's money that could be used to fix roads, money that could be used to do other things, build hospitals for people. You understand me? So I think that we are not done until we bring people whose actions led to the collapse of these finance houses, these financial institutions, these banks, until we bring them to book, until we're able to retrieve them, until they are prosecuted. We are not done with the cleanup exercise.
Okay, let me come to Richard now. Looking at also the almost 2 year journey that the Bank of Ghana has embarked on regarding this financial sector cleanup. The question of whether, in terms of what the governor set out to do, has been achieved after this cleanup has been done, because we are told from the press release that came out on Friday that the entire exercise is done. Satisfied?
Well, when I saw the statement, of course the numbers were huge, so they jump out immediately. But then I wanted to understand specifically what the key issues relating to each micro savings and loans company was. And what I found out, they were not so much different from what we've seen from the banks that were initially collapsed, and then the microfinance companies that were collapsed. And for me, one of the key issues that I found, or what I took from the press release, was the related party lending. So you have organizations, or you have savings and loans companies that have been set up purposely to take deposits from the public and then on-lend to related parties. So you can have a company, let's say, you yourself, you have a savings and loan company, which you don't have.
I don't have.
For the purposes of the immediate discussion, let's say you have a savings and loans company, and then you have other companies as part of your holding structure. So what they do is they take the money, and then your other companies will be giving the money. And what this does is that you don't pay back, because one, the risk were not properly assessed or checked. So it was like more of free monies to people, companies that were owned by financial holdings. So
that seems to have run through almost all of
yes.
them,
all
from
of
the
them.
finance
Right.
houses to even from
Almost
the banks and
all of them. So I mean, for me, it was scary, and I mean, like everybody will ask, where was the regulator in all of this? Because I know per the Specialized Deposit Taking Institutions Act 930,
2016.
yes, 2016, the Bank of Ghana has the authority and the power to audit any company as part of the holding structure. So if, let's say for instance, I know, I don't want to mention any company name, but let's say any company part of the holding structure, the Bank of Ghana has the right. If they want to audit, they can audit them. So for me, for these things to have gone on for quite some time, for some of these companies to have lent some of these monies to sister company, I think it was for me scary.
It's a question of the administration of the central bank, not in terms of the structure of the central bank, but in terms of the administration, because a critical look at all of the issues reveal a certain pattern from a certain year up to a certain year in terms of. Okay, is that attributable to the central bank as a structure, or in terms of the leadership of the central bank?
Let me point out something to you. So for the 23 companies that were, I mean, the savings and loans companies and the finance houses that were had their licenses revoked, 60% of them, which is about 14, let's say 14 of them were set up between 2010 and 2017. So 14 companies.
Out of the 23,
out of the
7 years.
Yes. And I'm even being charitable because it's not that they were set up in 2010, they collapsed. Some had even collapsed way before. Let's not forget that. Some had even shut down operations. A company like ASN had shut down operations way before the BOG had to take this action. So you could tell you that, I mean, this was a systemic, I don't want to say rot, but the trend, like we were saying, the trend, they had poor corporate governance, which means that some did not even have a functioning board. As at the time of BOG going there for onset, they didn't have a functioning board. So you wonder how some of these things were happening. And some of them, because you can have the chairman, the board chairman being the board chair of the holding company, being the board chair of the bank or the savings and loans company. I mean, you wonder what kind of checks and balances the board would have. So there was a clear pattern, and some of them too were not able to. In fact, all of them, their capital adequacy ratio were in the negative.
Right.
And you were required to have at least 10%. And you were in the negative. Some were in the negative to the tune of over 6,000%.
And this word, impairment, it looks like it ran through all.
It ran through all of them.
And what does
that mean?
What does that mean?
Prospects of recovery.
So the thing is, everything rises and falls with corporate governance, because you are supposed to make sure that everything you are doing is properly checked. And corporate governance means that we are talking about the right people being at the helm of affairs, and they were not there. And when we talk about the capital adequacy ratio, we are basically looking at the assets of the company as a percentage of the shareholding. I mean, that's being basic, as a percentage of the shareholders' funds they are contributing. So let's say if you have your assets should be about 100 million, and your shareholders are contributing, let's say 10%, which is about 10 million. We are talking about the company running into losses. So out of the 10 million they're supposed to contribute, that money has been eroded by the losses they've made over the years. So we are talking about a company having capital adequacy ratio negative in excess of 6,000%. And I mean, for all the
way back, you can't
so way back.
Right.
So for people, I mean, people talk about the fact that we couldn't have saved some of these companies. I think that, sometimes, I mean, we try to make the effort, but there's a certain level beyond which a company is beyond redemption. I mean, let's face fact. I mean, you cannot save something which is already dead. Some had already closed shop for 2-3 years. So what are you going to do? Are you going to call the workers back and say, okay, new money, come and start operations? I mean, it's not going to be possible.
Okay. So and just final thoughts before I move to
on the bit about whether we are done with the
cleanup. Yeah.
Well, I think that, I mean, I see the BOG making this statement just to give some confidence, boost the confidence of the sector.
Of course.
And that's what I see, because when we look at the segmentation, we have the rural and commercial banks,
yes.
Community banks.
Because they had been rumored that that was going to be
Exactly.
the next
But in the
stage.
statement, what the BOG said was they're going to work with the ARB, Apex Bank, to make sure they fix some of these things. So once that bet is still there, we cannot say we are done. But what they are also saying is they are done with their bets, because the Securities and Exchange Commission also regulates the investment banks, and they're also part of the financial sector. So I think that what we need to be clear on is to say that they are done with their bets. You know, the insurance companies are also part of the financial sector,
yes,
and they also have their own. So the BOG is trying to tell us that, look, for now, what we started in 2017, collapsing banks or revoking the licenses of banks and microfinance, we are done. We are going to make sure that the rest that are there are prudential enough. They are submitting all their returns. They are complying with everything they need to comply with. That's for now. But we also have to be expectant. I mean, as journalists, as people who watch the industry, we have to be expectant of the sex action, which could take place any moment from now. And well, I don't want to be a prophet of doom. Yeah. But then so, I think that people need to stay calm.
But there are also questions about whether or not closing these banks and these finance houses down is the only way we can reform that sector. Is that the only way?
Well, when I hear people, Mr. One needs to have a stake on this.
I think I had a conversation with somebody at the Bank of Ghana, which I don't want to mention.
Yeah, but what is he saying?
Those who make that suggestion or those who ask those questions, they should probably also bring a proposal forward for what needs to be done
to make it. So we are looking for a much more consensus building approach. Yes, so Mr. Yeboah, what are your thoughts on this, observing as a communications lecturer as well, and also looking at how this has gone in terms of probably the communication and also in terms of the implications? How would you analyze this?
Okay, I think it is good for a regulator to clean the system to ensure that we all do the right thing. Okay. But my challenge has always been a regulator who sleeps on his job and wakes up one day and finds other players sleeping and picks a big stick to beat them up to wake up. Okay, my concern is, why should the Bank of Ghana sit down and lump 23 institutions together and close them down? Why wouldn't the bank do it one after the other? So if you are doing your monitoring well, and you find out that Bank A or financial institution A is not doing the right thing, just go in and deal with that issue. You don't wait as if you want a certain number to flout the law before you come in with a big stick. I have a challenge with that. So even as we are trying to look at who should be held accountable, we should not also lose sight of officers within the Bank of Ghana who may have also slept on their job, as a result of which we are having such issues around. Because you also need to consider the social implication. How will people take this news? I have some small amount of money in a savings and loan company, and then you wake up and make this announcement. It's going to affect a lot of people. So for me, I think the way the Bank of Ghana, the approach in terms of enforcing its rules and regulations is very key. A lot of people raise issues about the way the bank handled the DKM issue, for example. And many people believe that if the central bank had communicated well or had dealt with the issue well, perhaps we wouldn't have had the anxiety and everything that were experienced. So I think that the Bank of Ghana itself cannot absolve itself from blame as we try to look at this thing. The other issue of interest to me is how we, the media, also come into all of this. Do we have to wait for the Bank of Ghana to come and make such announcements, or we can also explore the issues?
In which way, which approach,
on the ground,
how would it be?
Yeah, go on the ground to explore which financial institutions are doing well or not doing well, to even alert the public that perhaps you may think twice before you put your money somewhere. So my point is that in all of this, the media also play a critical role in terms of protecting the interests of the public.
Okay, so we would take our first break here. When we come back, I would give my guests, Etornam and Richard, final thoughts on this issue, and then we'll move to the matter regarding the creation of employment. Over 600,000 jobs, official government figures. We'll be interrogating that. This is press conference. Don't go away. Welcome back. This is press conference right here on Citi TV. I still have in studio Mr. Yeboah, Etornam Say, and Richard Abbey, and we are actually analyzing issues in the financial sector regarding the revocation of 23 licenses for savings and loans and some other financial institutions. But your comments have been coming through. We would read a couple of them for you. This one from Ralph I. From New Bawe. Ralph I. sending this one from New Bawe says, I agree 100% with Etornam. Until all customers receive their deposits, we are not done. This whole kabudo must be a learning curve for us. Never again should we go on this path. Never. Say Joseph, sending this one from Adidome, says, bringing people to book will not save the taxpayers' money. Bank of Ghana, bringing people to book will not save the taxpayers' money. Bank of Ghana and government is only covering up something. I seriously believe that government is owing most of these banks and savings and loans companies. We shall see how government will face Indum at the courts. Another one coming in from Danso from Donina says, my question is, will depositors get their money back, but through anyone's negligence, that it's through someone's negligence that these savings and loans companies collapsed and they need to be called to book? So you're also talking about people being prosecuted for granting the licenses without the due diligence. Finally, this one from Yahuza Moshizongo in Tamale says, what happens to all the employees of these financial institutions numbering over 750? Well, the association told us on Friday here at Citi FM that it's over 1,000. So I don't know where you're getting the 750 from, but that's what you think. Are they not unemployed by this government? Was their interest taken into consideration? Could the government have saved them from collapse? These are questions that you are asking. But we're moving away from issues in the financial sector cleanup, but not yet. So I'll give my guests 30 seconds, okay. 30 seconds, final thoughts on this before we move to the next issue.
Okay, so I'd like to wrap up on this one by saying that I think that Bank of Ghana, well, we are congratulating them for step so far in, protecting the depositor. But we would want to, know how much it's costing us, because Bank of Ghana says we have the funds to pay depositors. We want to know how much the Bank of Ghana is setting aside to take on this exercise. We also want to find out what measures they are putting in place to look at employees of these 23 savings and loans companies and whether or not we have plans of absorbing them, because in Ghana, when you work, you have a lot of mouths to feed. You have your parents waiting on you for remittances, you have your siblings looking up to you and all that. So we just want to see what the plan is so that it will be seamless,
okay,
with the process.
Richard, final thoughts.
So I want to be controversial, but I think that all these that went on, from what the Bank of Ghana has told us, a lot of these things were organized crime. Because, why would you... So one company, for instance...
Organized crime is illegal and it's a term of art. So if you're going to use it...
Hold on. There's a reason why YOCO, which stands for Economic and Organized Crime Office or something, they are investigating some of the banks that went down.
Universal Bank. Yeah.
Exactly. So there's one case I'm reading just here where a company advanced loans to related parties and they tried to conceal it from the Bank of Ghana. And when we say they advanced loan to related parties, meaning that they took deposits from the public and they gave it to companies they own and they were trying to hide it from the Bank of Ghana.
So in a sense, the law should take its course.
So, of course, I think that we need to start jailing people.
It's been 2 years. It's been 2 years.
No, you see,
I don't know if it's been 2 years.
You see, the Bank of Ghana, the governor has said that they need a specialized course to deal with all this. And we need to be fast about it.
So we'll move on to the second issue now, which has got to do with the creation of jobs. Minister for Employment and Labour Relations, Ignatius Opoku, addressed the press, and he put out the figures that over 600,000 jobs have been created. Let's take a look at some excerpts of that presser.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to announce that during the period under review, a total of 611,397 jobs were created in the formal sector. Out of this figure, the ministry's department and agencies accounted for 343,458 jobs, whilst the former private sector also created 267,939 jobs. In addition to these new jobs in the formal sector, the ever-famous Planting for Food and Jobs program is estimated to have created 1,593 jobs from 2017 to date. The figures from the respective institutions can be accessed from the ministry's website, www.melr.gov.gh. Ladies and gentlemen, in addition to the good news about a falling unemployment rate from 11.9% in 2015 to 7.1% in 2019, you will all agree with me that there has been a relatively stable and peaceful industrial atmosphere since January 2017. And I must commend the gallant workers of Ghana, employers, and the leadership of respective unions for their support, patience, and tolerance in the handling of all labor disputes on the labor front. Let me emphasize here that this has been the result from our collective efforts as members of the tripartite body, and in no way should credit be given to any one individual.
So Ignatius Opoku is Minister for Employment Labour Relations, MP Sunyani West, and there was a response from the MP for Keta and Minority Deputy Ranking Member on the Employment and Social Welfare as well as State Enterprises Commission, Richard Maoli Kwashiga. This is his response to what the minister said at the press conference.
More jobs have been lost than have been created under the Nana Addo administration since they took over. The upheavals in the banking and financial sector led to thousands of job losses. The textile sector also saw thousands of job losses. The brewery sector, about 1,500, food and beverages, about 1,200, while the media landscape also saw hundreds of job losses. It is therefore not surprising that the Center for Socio-Economic Studies, CSS, after its work, concluded that over 1 million jobs have been lost since Nana Addo-led NPP government came into force. If that is anything to go by, then the doubtful jobs of 611,397 created in the MDAs and the private formal sector as posited by the Minister for Employment and Labour Relations in his Meet the Press encounter is still in arrears of well over 400,000 job losses. We are cautioning the government to desist from churning out dubious and fabricated employment figures and rather seek the right figures from the GSS, they previously rubbished and holistically tackle the worsening unemployment situation in this country. Ghanaians are already suffering enough to be ridiculed with dubious and fabricated employment figures.
That's Deputy Minority Spokesperson on Employment there. But is there a reason to doubt the figures that have been put out there?
For me, I think we don't need to have the government presenting one side of the story and then the opposition presenting the other side of the story. I think what we need in this matter is an independent body that will tell us how many jobs have been created over the period and how many jobs have been lost. Then we can have a balance and know the net job creation or job losses. But as it is now, with the government telling its side of the story and the opposition also telling its side of the story, it becomes a political issue. And we are then not able to appreciate the real issue. So I think what we need to have is an independent body like ICE, like GSS, to come and give us figures that we will all appreciate. And I will also be interested in knowing the sources. It is not enough to come and mention a huge figure, but if...
Well, he claims that these are figures these are official government statistics, and most of these jobs have been created in the public sector. So that's what they can track.
Yeah, but can we break them down? They say the devil is
in the detail.
In the detail, and then also, can we identify them? If you are telling me that, okay, Ministry of Employment has created 100 jobs or has offered 100 jobs, can we go there and verify and know that Kwikwa Nancy, Adjoa Mensah were employed within this space of time? I don't know how you relate that to the government's own embargo on employment. Okay, so if you say you have created jobs, let us know the fine details of the jobs you have
Okay, I'll come to you, Etornam.
Mm-hmm.
Any reason to doubt the figures that are being put out?
I don't work with the Ministry of Employment, yes, and I'm not with the Statistical Service either, and I haven't conducted any research to ascertain the veracity of the claims, being put out by government. And so all we can say is that we're looking at the situation on the ground. Government could be saying one thing, and the situation on the ground could be another thing. But let's look at events that we've seen over the past 2 years, for instance, the collapse of these banks, how many people have had to, lose their jobs. I mean, one notable person is Raymond, who used to be the manager at Capital Bank, yes, and now sells pork. And he doesn't do it regularly, as and when he gets an order. So that's someone who is beginning to, operate from hand to mouth. This was someone who had a regular income, who had people who were depending on him, who probably was servicing a loan from his income, And you can also look at situations of other people who lost their jobs, who are into Uber and other menial jobs. So I'm saying that government could be saying one thing, and we could also see another thing. Now, if government is saying that we have employed people in the government sector, exactly between which period and which period? Because government put a freeze on employment in the government sector. So you created it where? Do you employ people? You created sectors. Are we looking at maybe planting for food and jobs? How many people it has employed? They should break it down, like he said, and let us know specifically who they employed at what time, and what the nature of the job is. I know the free SHS has come. Maybe it's created some avenue. It's giving people new jobs. The double track system probably has brought on a lot more teachers than we had before. Maybe the new regions and districts have created, avenues for people to have jobs. I don't know. I don't have the details of that. Maybe it's up to us journalists to, peruse those figures. But what I'm saying is that they should make it clear to us which sectors of the economy, they have employed people, whether these are, because we know that, for instance, this one district, one factory We have heard stories of people who had their own factories that the government will approach and say, we are partnering with you, and that's one district, one factory. So there's stories of that. I'm not saying it's true, but these are stories.
Just a breakdown of some of the figures. So Ministry of Interior says, so for instance, Ministry of Interior from 2017 to 2019, 7,000 jobs have been created. Ministry of Works and Housing, 4,137.
What's the nature of that job? 7,000 jobs?
7,000 jobs by the Ministry of Interior.
Is it what exactly?
Good. From the explanation I have heard and listening to the briefing that went on included recruitment into security agencies and services. So for instance, that's at the Ministry of Interior, the Ministry of Works and Housing, 4,000, Ministry of Regional Reorganization, the creation of new regions. So that's 5. Ministry of Aviation, 667. Ministry of Transport, 1,254. It goes on and on and on. And if you put, most of them are, well, these are official employment figures. So from there, jobs created at the ministries, departments, and agencies, and others created in planting for food and jobs. That's 1 million. Well, that's 1.5 million jobs. So I'll come to you now.
Well, we would have to peruse that. We would have to research into that. It's up to us journalists to be the eye for the people who can't see and be the voice for the voiceless anyway. So it's up to us to find out really whether these figures are actually accurate. Yeah. Because you don't expect the politician to come and say, in our era, during our tenure, people lost their jobs. You don't expect them to say, they expect them to, blow their own horn. So we don't expect them to say the negative. And so it's up to us to find out. As we sit here, I can't say whether or not the figures are right or wrong. I'm just looking at events, over the past 3 years, this government has been in power, and now the number of people who have lost their job. I can only see what I can see, but I can't say for a fact what the figures are true or not.
Okay, Richard.
Well, for me,
how are you interrogating these figures?
For me, I'm trying to look at it from the perspective of economic growth, and at least over the past 5 years, our economic growth has been spurred on by the oil and gas sector. So you would have the economy expand by, let's say, we are doing about 6.7%, and then the oil sector is doing the huge or the biggest chunk of it. And we know the oil and gas sector doesn't employ, it's a very, very specialized field. So the oil and gas sector can grow in multiples, but in terms of employment, it translates into very small number of employment. So when you tell me you have over 600,000 people getting new jobs, I'm trying to look at it from, so the non-oil sector, how is it faring? That's where people are being employed the most. So if the non-oil sector is not growing that much, and you come and tell me that people are being employed more over there, I begin to wonder. So I begin to interrogate, what kind of jobs, like Etornam was saying, what kind of jobs are they creating? Are these jobs that already existed that people left and they are replacing? We need to look at all these things, because if somebody has retired and you replace the person, do you define it as a job created? Because for me, what I know sometimes, when you talk about job creation, means that you are creating new jobs, because the economy is expanding and you are creating new jobs that previously did not exist. So if the jobs are already there, somebody left and you are replacing, I don't want you to come and tell me that this is a new job, because anyway you would have replaced the person regardless. But for me, I think that the approach is good. I applaud the concept, because for once, we need to be talking about job creation. That's what the people want. And so if it comes to the forefront and we are interrogating, the people at the helm of our affairs will begin to question, this is what the people are saying. So how do we create more jobs? For me, I think we need to make a systematic approach to create jobs. Like the government has said, the planting for food and jobs and one district, one factory. I think it's something that is laudable. We need to consistently be holding them to accountable that, look, you need to create jobs for people to. And the issue about the planting for food and jobs, are we saying that because we gave people fertilizer, we gave people some intervention, we've created jobs for them? Were they not farmers already? Or are we saying that because of planting for food and jobs, more people came on board farming? I just want to know, because, the figures, yes, if it's true, I don't have any means of ascertaining the veracity of what the minister had put up. But if the figures
shouldn't we be empowering these for want of a better word, independent institutions to be able to be doing these things.
I think
so that there will not be doubts politically in terms of what government is saying, what the other side is also, what the opposition is saying. In terms
let's
of
define the empowerment, okay? So that if you're giving me seedlings, so you're giving me fertilizer, is that empowerment? Let's define the empowerment well.
But you see, the U.S. government, they do this, I think, almost a monthly or quarterly basis. And when the figures are published,
you have no reason to doubt.
There is no reason to doubt because we all know where the figures are coming from. We are not there yet. And I think that whatever we are doing, for us to even come out to say we have this number of jobs, let's trust that there's a process in place.
Absolutely.
Maybe the process is not perfect, but I think that we need to question the process, not to condemn the process, because we need to start from here before we can begin to get to a point where we are all sure in our minds that these figures are credible. Absolutely. And we need, as a country, I mean, previously we didn't have unemployment figures. When you ask any president, you ask any employment minister, they would not have that kind of figure. But once we have it, let's begin to question. It should be a regular feature, not a one-off or one time somebody mentions and then next thing you know, it's 2 years, 3 years. No, we need to be able to do it consistently. Right. We are in the era of technology. These things should be done every day.
A quick one. I think Etornam spoke about the nature. Do we also look at it in terms of whether the jobs are permanent jobs or maybe a seasonal job? It is all calculated. But then I think another appreciation we need to have is how many people are coming to the job market as against how much you are supposed to create and how much you have created. So we will know whether we should applaud the government for creating 600 jobs if it is supposed to create about 1.5 and you have done 600. Do we
so that tracking the numbers can be easy. We'll take a break here. When we come back, we have some of your messages and we will be heading towards the final end of the program. Welcome back. This is press conference right here on Citi TV. Our final issue up for discussion has got to do with the 70th anniversary or marking of the 70th milestone of the Ghana Journalists Association. That's the mother body for all journalists in the country. We are looking at reflecting on the GJA's contributions to journalism and the way forward. Thankfully, 4 journalists here. I am not a member of the GGA. Maybe after this, I should sign up. So that would be the first question to my other guests. Yes, I'll begin with Richard. Are you a member, first of all? If you are, why? If you are not, why? And the contributions of the GGA.
Well, I think you put me on the spot right there. I am a member of a different journalist association, not the GJA.
Okay.
And of course, I've always wanted to be part of the GJA. I think I have picked the forms on a number of occasions, but I mean, I had some hindrances. That's why I wasn't able to join them. But it's something I will do so in the future. On the contributions of GJA, I think that for over the years, you look at the sort of people, especially. I mean, what stands out is the award. So you look at the people who have emerged Journalists of the Year and the kind of work they've done in the past. I mean, it's quite remarkable. So it's something that endears me to, or endears the GJA to me. So GJA over the years, I think that they've done really quite well, especially the journalists. But
okay, the issue about, so there are concerns about welfare issues of journalists.
Yes, well, I think that what I want the GJA to do more is capacity building. Okay. Because we need, we are in a different era altogether, and you look at the sort of journalists we need for these times. We need, much as the employers have a responsibility, the journalists themselves have a responsibility. Their mother body should also, I mean, take it upon itself. I mean, they can secure funding, and you can have a situation where every quarterly, I mean, half year, yearly, people are trained for them to be relevant to the times that we are in. So the GJA, I want them to be more. And then they should also campaign more for the welfare of journalists in terms of remunerations and all those things. I mean, we are at the forefront all the time, but when it comes to, I mean, the sort of pay, that, I mean, some of my colleagues and I get. I mean, people take home nothing, virtually nothing. And I think that the GGA should be at the forefront and not let the people who are the voices themselves need people to be their voices for them.
Okay, I'll come to you now, Etornam.
Well, I'm not a member of the GGA. I have practiced this profession for over a decade. And I'm not a member not because I don't think they're doing well, but I don't find the institution attractive enough. I don't expect much from them because I haven't seen a lot, you know, from the GGA. My issue really with the GGA is that as journalists, this is what feeds us. Our job is to be the voice for the voiceless. Our job is to, you know, look at the stories that the ordinary person will not be able to look at, you know, and be able to bring the issues out, you know, be the voice and be the third eye for government. So what I'm saying is that if you're working in an environment that is hostile, I'm sure events over the past 2-3 years will tell you that we are operating as journalists in a very, you know, supposed hostile environment where you can't really say what you want to say well because even your employers will not support you. Let me give you a typical example. Manasseh Azuri-Awune, you know, he reported something on Jospong and he was seen as, you know, collapsing local businesses. They came after him. He's done a couple of stories. They've come after him. I'm asking the GGA what the GGA has done to support people. For instance,
in that regard,
when Ahmed Swale and the issue came up, I heard Afelmoni saying that, oh, we are coming up with some lawyers.
There was a statement, at least.
Who will protect journalists. I don't know how far with the lawyers or whether or not we've been able to come to some conclusion. I'm saying that we belong to a very hostile environment. If I'm a journalist, I have a family, I'm getting out of my house, I'm going to do a story that will...
Okay, so Ms. Yeboah will have to respond to these concerns, and we are running out of time.
The environment is not conducive. I can't work. You agree with me, don't you?
Ms. Yeboah, your thoughts briefly, and we have just about 3 minutes, 2 minutes to do this.
The 1992 Constitution of Ghana guarantees freedom of association, and so it is within the right of any person to want to belong to one association or not. But I want to make the point that it is important to belong to a professional association, and there are a lot of benefits that you get beyond welfare and other issues. Mrs. Ya Oforiwa Piasa, she is a former treasurer of the GGA. She told me a story about attending an international conference, and she couldn't use the GNA ID card to gain access into the conference hall. But when she produced the GGA ID card, she was immediately admitted.
Okay.
It is because at the international level, we also have affiliations, and so we are well recognized.
What's the way forward? 70 years. It's 70 years. It's. I mean, that's a matured organization.
It is. At the birthday event, we had a lot of speakers sharing thoughts. For some were positive, some were not. I think we have done very well over the years. It is because of the work that we've been doing that even our democracy is growing, and this is acclaimed everywhere in the world.
Okay. Unfortunately, yes. What we have to do? Yes. All right. So, okay. GJ is a year long. There are going to be other activities. Mr. Yeboah, I'm sure, will be back in the studio for us to have further discussions on this. But this has been press conference. My name is Mensah Opoku. I had in the studio Mr. Kofi Yeboah, who is General Secretary for the Ghana Journalists Association. Etornam is with Media General on the business desk, business department, as well as Richard Ni Annerquaye Abbey, editor, CitiBusinessNews.com. Keep watching Citi TV and enjoy the rest of our programming.